Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today. Today, my friends, in this video, we're going to do an analysis of beauty of a work of art called La Femme, and you can see it here on screen. And this painting was painted in 1895 by an Italian master painter named Giacomo Grosso. And what I want to do in this video is I want to analyze this painting and talk about what makes it beautiful, what makes it such an effective and powerful image, an important work of art. And my goal for this video is to, through my analysis, I want to show and help you maybe explain for yourself how you can see more beauty in the world and how you can appreciate more beauty in the world. So maybe if you're looking at a work of art, or maybe you're just seeing the world around you and something resonates with you, something strikes you, something feels beautiful to you, but you may not know why. That's what I want to do in this video. So if maybe you're an artist and you're beginning on your journey in drawing, painting, or composition, you want to learn more about what makes beautiful compositions, or maybe you're a layperson, you're an art lover, you're a collector. You wouldn't consider yourself an artist, but you love art and you love beautiful things, beautiful images, but you want to know what makes something beautiful for yourself. And that's what we want to do today. So I'm going to analyze this painting here, and I'll just talk about some things that I see and some things that you can take with you so you can appreciate more beauty in your life. And if you're new to me, my name is Chris Legaspi. I'm a professional artist, author, and anime instructor. So thank you for being here today. Okay, this painting is called La Femme, and it was painted by an Italian master painter named Giacomo Grosso. It's painted in 1895, so right around the turn of the century in Italy. And let's take a closer look at this gorgeous thing real quick. Let's just appreciate this work of art here. It's quite a long painting. The composition is quite gorgeous. Look at this glorious thing. This is the highest resolution I could find. So hopefully you can feel and appreciate some of the glorious details in the brushwork. Incredible. So if you're watching this live, comment below. What strikes you about this painting as we appreciate it in close-up here? I'm just scrolling up and down. What resonates with you in the moment right now? What do you notice? Is it the colors? Is it the beautiful contrast? Is it the beautiful realism? Is it the beautiful textures? To me, when I first saw this painting, I was like, oh my God, look at that composition. And the second thing was, look at that incredible fabric. Oh my God. As an artist, that's one of the things I want to improve is fabric. Let's zoom out a little bit here so you can appreciate a bit more. My goodness, look at this glorious thing. So I want to tell a little story. Let's zoom out a bit here. To be honest, I don't know how I discovered this painting. I was working on a drawing for myself, a new work for myself. You know, I'm a fine artist, and I was working on a new charcoal drawing, and I wasn't quite clear about the composition, so I wanted to get inspired. So I looked through my folder of masterworks. I have a collection of masterworks in a folder, and this popped up. I don't even remember where I grabbed it initially. I had no idea where I grabbed it, but this immediately popped up on my screen, and I was like, oh, I knew that was it. I knew that was it, and I'll explain why this resonated with me. And when you hear the story of this painting, you're going to be like, oh my God, That's an incredible story. Um, and then I immediately knew I had to do a copy of it. So that's, I'll show it on screen here. You can see I did a drawing of it. Here's a close-up of a page in my sketchbook. So I immediately knew I wanted to capture the composition, and I'll explain why I like this composition so much. And then I did a more detailed study of the face, the fabric. Like I said, I immediately knew that I could learn so much from this painting as an artist. So in this video, I want to explain how you, even if you're not an artist, how you can take away some lessons so that you can see beauty in the world out there. So before we break down the painting, I wanted to quickly, oh, forgive me, some background noise. Before we break down the painting, I wanted to quickly share what I discovered about the painting, because the story is quite unique. Because in this video, what I want to do is first break down why I think this is a beautiful image, and then I'll talk about exactly what I see in it that makes it a beautiful image, and I'll explain why it works, why it served its purpose, which goes back to the essence of beauty for me. So this painting was painted by this man you see here. His name is Giacomo Grosso, and he was a 19th century Italian realist, and he was famous for doing high society portraits of his time. That's really how he was mostly known for, the bulk of his career, at least what we know of him. He painted the elite, the wealthy, the aristocracy in Italy at the time. So that's what the subject of this painting is here. And this painting is called La Femme, which means the woman, the female. And the story behind this painting is actually a portrait commission, obviously, of one of the aristocracy, the high society, the upper class, the wealthy elite of Italy at the time. And this was a birthday present for the model herself. And what's unique is that the patron, the person who commissioned this painting, and the model herself have been purposely hidden from history. So they purposely wanted to be anonymous, because the subject of this painting, the woman in this painting, she wrote a little article. There's an article about a little biography about this painting, how it came about. She wanted this painting to not be about her. So typically these high society portraits that we see are more about, hey, look, look at me, look at our family, look at our wealth, look at our status. But this painting was quite unique, because the subject, the woman in this painting, she wanted it to be about womanhood, because I believe there's a couple of reasons culturally at the time. I would say the role of women was starting to become more and more prominent. Women were starting to step into the forefront of things. So culturally, that was a big change. But also, I believe, related to aesthetics, what makes this painting beautiful is because, as you can see, she's not the typical classic, what we know today. You know, at the time of this recording, the standard of beauty, at least in America and the West, is thin, slim, tall, long. But she is quite curvy. She's got big, beautiful hips, and she wanted that to be shown in her painting. She wanted the artist, Giacomo Grosso, to show off her voluptuous curves, to show off her big, beautiful hips, to show off her chest, her breast. There's a quote in the article that says, she said she wanted people to see that the good Lord wanted of generous forms. The good Lord was generous of forms to her, meaning God blessed her with curves, and she was proud of that. She was proud. She wanted other women who were curvy like her to also be proud and not be ashamed of their bodies. So I think this is an incredible statement, both culturally in terms of the role of women in culture at the time, and also aesthetically, because perhaps the aesthetic was changing at this time. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. But for her to make this statement like, I don't care I don't care about what's happening. I am proud of my body. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud of my body, and I want other women to also be proud of their bodies. And I think that's the core message of this painting, which makes it so cool. And we'll break down why I believe this is such a brilliant painting. And when you see why the elements that the artist used, you'll see why it works. Why this is such a gorgeous work of art. Not only because aesthetically it's pleasing as a painting, but because it actually served its purpose, which was to communicate the story, the idea, the emotion that the subject, the patron, wanted, which was women that look like me should be proud to be women and should be proud of their bodies. Fantastic. So we have La Femme on screen here. And let me see if... I was like, huh, it's a little bright. Ah, there we go. Okay, what I want to do is break down what makes this painting beautiful, my analysis of it. First, I'm going to talk about contrast. Then we'll talk about design and why it serves its purpose and story. So now you know a little bit about the story, the intent behind it, and why it serves that purpose. And they're all kind of related. They're all kind of related. So these are the three things we're going to look at. And in terms of design, I want to talk about pictorial design and then the other elements involved. Okay, so in terms of design, we can clearly see in terms of composition, it's long, it's vertical. And I personally have a bias towards two things, and this is one of the reasons why this resonated with me. One is centered compositions, things that are put in the middle, and two are long and vertical things, and specifically the central thirds, what I call the corridor. So what do I mean by centered? So if we right, if we composition in half, roughly, boom, the figure is smack dab in the middle. So that's not easy, by the way. And what I mean and what I mean by thirds is that the central thirds, you know, roughly the rule of thirds, you divide things into 9 quadrants like this. And really it's not a fixed or hard rule. What it is just it's to make sure that you don't put things smack dab in the middle, because it tends to get boring and predictable. But if you put things, it helps you just put things in an interesting way, and part of that is asymmetry, which makes things interesting. So it's a balance of contrast, visual arrangement and contrast of visual elements. But central thirds is something that's real nice. So as you can see, boom, the figure, the head is pretty much smack dab in the middle. It's lined up central thirds. There's that beautiful element in the background, as you can see, in the original. And then lots of things are smack dab in the middle. The couch is smack dab in the middle. So the central thirds is a very, very powerful thing that creates importance. And that's the first major takeaway, is that center means important. Center means important. So I'm going to write this down. It's important. Whoop. Centered means important. So when you see a composition, when you see a painting, a work of art, whatever you put in the middle, especially if you put it smack dab in the middle, what you're telling the viewer is, hey, this is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. So it's super powerful. And this goes beyond pictures. So those of you who aren't artists, this goes beyond pictures. This also applies to any window, it's any frame. And I got this from Picture This. It's a book by Molly Banks, a wonderful book on composition. But psychologically, this is a human psychological thing. So this goes way beyond artists and pictures. It's that if you look through a window, and psychologically, whatever's in the middle of the window or a TV screen or a movie, if you put something smack dab in the middle, boom, it's going to be, you psychologically, it has so much weight. You feel it's important. So when you, in a work of art, when the conscious, so this artist consciously put this person here to make her feel important. And remember, that's what the model wanted. That's what the patron wanted. That's what the subject wanted. The artist knew that. And this is so bold because it's quite hard to do this. And it's quite bravado. It's when you put something smack dab in the middle, just like what I drew here, you're kind of making yourself a target. You're making yourself say, hey, look at me. So that kind of bravado is tough. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself smack dab in the middle of a painting, and to do it in a way that's also quite elegant and beautiful and soft and sophisticated. And I'll explain why it's soft and sophisticated as well, is remarkable. So that's why this painting resonated with me personally, is because I personally, that's my taste. I like centered compositions, and partly why is because I am, as a designer, as an artist, those of you who follow my work, you may notice this. I do put a lot of things in my own work in the center, and that's because it's kind of a macho bravado thing. That's kind of my personality. That's kind of who I am. It's kind of my aesthetic. I like that oomph. I'm an American, and Americans are kind of like that. They're like, whoa, look at me. Look at me. I'm specifically, I'm an LA guy. I'm an American from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is full of people who they're full of actors and entertainers and things. Hey, look at me. So it's a statement of bravado, a statement of importance, which is why it resonated with me. And we'll circle back to the patron, why it's important. So centered means important. Now, if you put something smack dab in the middle, it can look very boring, very predictable, and in a way it lowers the taste. It lowers the aesthetic quality. It lowers the sense of beauty. Why? Because it's so boring, it's so predictable, and it's a bit garish. Like I said, there's a balance between putting yourself in, say, hey, look at me, having the self-awareness, self-confidence, self-esteem to want to be seen, but you can go too far. You can have too much bravado. You can be too macho. You could be, and culturally, aesthetically, we don't want that. Culturally, we don't want that. And aesthetically, you don't want that either. So how does this great craftsman, Giacomo Grosso, solve that problem? He wants to satisfy the client. He wants to satisfy the needs of the client. He wants to satisfy the needs of the story and the picture of the emotion he wants. That, hey, look at me, I'm important. This painting is important. But he also doesn't want to lower the taste and aesthetic and make it too garish, make it too, there's a word when too overconfident. How does he do that? Watch this, my friends. So the first tool that the master craftsman uses is subtle placement. So in a portrait, even if you do a full figure, comment below. In a portrait, what is the most important thing in a portrait? Of course, it's the face. The face, right? The face. And as we all know, even lay people know, in the face, it's the eyes. So the eye line, the face is number one, and of the face, the eye line is number one. So the most important thing really in this entire image, this entire painting, is the woman's face, and of the face, it's the eyes. So what does the master craftsman do to both satisfy the importance, to tell the story of importance, but still elevate the taste, not lower the taste, not make it too bravado, too overconfident? What does the master craftsman do? So this line, this blue line that I drew is roughly the center. What does he do? Does he put the face here? Smack dab in the middle? No. No. He puts the face slightly above center. Look at that. So it's just above center enough. It's center vertical, but not center horizontal. So it's just centered enough. Just centered enough to both tell the story and yet not be garish. So this is, that is fantastic design. So you can take this for yourself. And those of you watching who are lay people, if you see a composition who tries to do central importance in their design, but they put everything smack dab in the middle, most likely that person isn't as skilled or as trained. So now you know what to look for. Now you know when you see a centrally themed composition, placed composition, and it feels beautiful to you, but doesn't feel too garish, too immature, now you know why. Because the placement is just above center. So fantastic use of placement. And you can even see the triangles of her arms. You can see the triangles of her arms pushing your eye up. So it's elevating, you're telling your eye to go above center, above the center. So I'm going to draw in pink here. So this is center, but telling your eye to go above center. And also notice too, comment below, the trained artist will answer this question. In a portrait, if you're doing a full figure, in a realist painting, we agreed that the face is most important. What is the second most important element in a portrait? Comment below. That's right, it's the hands. So it's the hands. And look at the master craftsman, what did he do? Again, puts the hands slightly below center. Puts the face above. The second most important thing, the things that have the second most weight in a realistic painting of a human being is the hands. So he puts that slightly below. So again, it further elevates the taste. It further makes the initial statements of importance a bit more subtle. And subtlety, my friends, is a sign of mastery. So the more subtle you can communicate a strong composition, the more skilled you are. So, fantastic. Now, let's talk about contrast. So in picture making and composition, the master tool is contrast. So you can tell how skilled, well, you can tell a work of art is beautiful if it has conscious use of contrast, which this does, and I'll explain why. And you can tell how skilled a composer, a picture maker is by how well they use contrast. So does this master painter, Giacomo Grosso, does he use contrast in this painting? Of course he does, and I'll explain why. Okay, so contrast is the master tool and a demonstration of the master skill of any composer, picture maker, someone who makes pictures and compositions. How does Giacomo Grosso use contrast here? Can you see it? Those of you who are trained, you may be able to see it. Let's look at the original side by side real quick. How does he use contrast here? To both tell the story. Remember, the story is about importance, about womanhood and the importance of womanhood. How does he tell the story? How does he use contrast to still communicate the story but still elevate the taste? Number one, look at the couch line. Look at the couch. There's two ways he does the couch. Look at the couch line, my friends. And you're going to see me draw it here. You see that? Now, remember we said a little bit above center still elevates the taste. Good, it's not garish. So of course it's slightly above center. But what else is there? It's not a whack. It's not a perfectly straight couch. So obviously, I have no idea what this couch looks like. It may have been invented for all I know. I doubt it. This probably was a real couch. But I promise you that the curve of that couch was intentional. I'm going to exaggerate. The curve of the couch was intentional. And it's not, and you see my curve is ugly. Why is my curve ugly? That little sketch line I drew is ugly because it's too much. It's too much. If you made the curve like that, it grabs too much attention. Too much attention. So it becomes garish. It takes away from the importance of the woman. So he had to make a perfectly perfect, elegant curve. If it's too straight, it's garish. It's like, hey, look at me. Look at me. You're too much bravado. If it's too curved, and it's also the same thing, it's too garish. Boom. Look at that curve. Look at that curve. Mwah. Glorious perfection in line and design. That is not an accident, and that's not easy. You see me, I tried to do it, and I made it ugly. And I've been doing composition for, my gosh, almost 2 decades now, professionally. So you see, it's, wow, fantastic. So curve, my friends. The use of a curve in a central design still elevates the taste, makes it a more subtle statement. And like I said, subtlety is a sign of mastery. What else? What else in contrast? So it's a contrast of straight versus curve. You see it? Of course, my friends, it's contrast in color and value. We can see in the original, contrast in color and value. And by value, let me do this. Okay, so now you can see it just without the beautiful golden colors, beautiful gold, yellow, cool yellow colors. You can see the beautiful value and look at that gorgeous curve, but also, wow, look at the subtle contrast in value right here. Look at that. Even here it's even more subdued. It's just dark enough. It's also, there's the highlight on the couch. So he separated it in value from the couch, probably with the highlight and his few gorgeous detailed accents. Oh my goodness, I drew on the thing. So he separated in value with these gorgeous little accents and the highlight of the couch. Highlight of the couch, gorgeous little details and accents, just enough to make it a little bit darker. And then, my friends, of course, those of you who are trained artists, you can see it. Those of you who are untrained, I'm going to explain to you color contrast. We can all feel that this is essentially, this zone, right, is essentially yellowy gold. Like, this is the most gold thing in this zone, is the gold back of the chair, the couch, okay? It's most gold. It's the richest gold, right? Lay people, you understand what I mean. It's very rich, saturated. Artists use that term, saturated. The next saturated thing is the fabric of the couch itself. So this is 1. This is 2 in levels of richness and color. And look what happens to the wall. I'm going to change my pen, color my pen, you can see it better. Look what happens to the wall, my friends. This is what artists call a cool yellow. In other words, he took yellow and he added some blues and some violets to make it a bit more gray. So it kind of makes it cooler and separated. So we know it's the same exact value. It's the same value, right? So value-wise, light and dark, it's the same, but color is not. And that's not easy, my friends. Even those of you who paint, who draw, you know that's not easy. So lay people, if you're not an artist, this is not easy to control what we call color temperature, to control how the same color, yellow, to make it slightly more gray, to make it slightly more rich, to make it a little bit less rich. 3 levels of the same color. Not easy. So this is a masterful display of contrast of color. Masterful display. So when you look at a work of art and you see the colors, you're like, wow, the colors look great. You may not understand why. They feel great to you. A lot of the times it's not because you have a bunch of colorful things that work together. A lot of times it's because the artist, the painter, the craftsperson controlled the saturation and the temperature, how gray, how cool, how rich, how warm, how warm or how cool, how orangey it is or how blue it is. That is skill, my friend. So that is an excellent display of contrast of color. And speaking of speaking of contrast of color, there's one more example here, which is very obvious, which is the center bar. The center bar. Oops. And I'm going to minimize mine. Okay, so I just drew in blue the center bar of gold. Now I have no idea if this was actually there. I'm almost 99% convinced this painter invented this center bar. I don't think this was this woman's living room, the subject's living room, exactly as he saw it. I'm almost 99% convinced he invented this center bar of gold. Obviously, we all know gold is sign of importance. It's a sign of luxury and wealth, of course. That's obvious. But what I want to point out is, like we just talked about with the couch, is it's a contrast in temperature, right? In this zone behind the model, the gold is richer, it's warmer, it's more orange, it's closer to, or when I say warm, I mean it's closer to orange. Orange is the hottest, the warmest color. So it's the most orangey, yet yellow gold. Gold is basically orangey yellow. It's the most orangey warm thing, but the background is not. The background is, it's still gold, but it's a gray gold. So it's less orangey. It's desaturated, it's less intense. So it separates in terms of color contrast. So it's orange, it's orangey yellow next to cool gray yellow, grayish yellow. What else, my friends? What else? Do you see it? Of course, it's saturation. You see, saturation. So this has, poof, more. It's a lot of rich gold. It's a lot of paint. To make this, you need more yellow, actually more physical paint. If this was, those of you watching who may be craftspeople, you may work on homes, you may have painted your own house, you may decorate things. You understand that if this was a real thing, you would have to literally put more gold on top of this wall. So it's more. The term is saturated. More of that color. So it's more saturated. There's more gold than the wall. So in terms of temperature, warm versus cool, and in terms of saturation, more of it and less of it, more intense, more rich yellow and less intense yellow. So two things he's doing there. And there's one more thing, and we already talked about it. And I'm going to hide this so you can see it. There's one more thing. Remember, centered is what we need to properly tell the story, but we don't want to be too aggressive. We don't want to be too bravado. We don't want to be garish. So what does he do? He makes perfectly centered, bold, boom. It's basically straight, but it's not. It's basically straight, but it's not. Look at the edge, my friends. And I'm going to try to draw it. You see that? You see that broken, kind of scattered, rough edge? My friends, that is 1,000% intentional. He could have easily made whump, right? He could have easily made it straight, like, oh, I want to show off my patron. I want to show off this woman. I want to show how rich she is. Boom, make it straight. No. He says, no. He knew that would lower the taste. So he said, no. I'm going to make it more subtle. And remember, subtlety in design is a sign of skill. He said, no. I'm going to make my design, my gold design that he probably invented, a bit more subtle with that beautiful tattered edge. And even the details. Look at the details. Details, they're there, but the contrast is so low and the edge is kind of loose and painterly, you know. We call it painterly. He didn't put a hard, small brushstroke line. These are kind of big, brushy, expressive marks, right? Fantastic, fantastic. So even though it's centered design, he did just enough to make it not garish. And I can go on. I can go on. I can go on. There's one more thing before we circle back to the story, because all of this is important. I'm going to close with why all of I just talked about serves the most important thing, which is the function of this painting, which is to tell a story. Before we do that, there's one last bit of contrast. Contrast is the master tool of the master craftsman. So if you see contrast, it's a sign of intelligent design. Without intelligent design, you don't have beauty. Beauty is harmony, and harmony comes from purpose. Purpose comes from conscious design, intelligent design. There's one more element. There's so many. There's one more element that I visually noticed, and I already alluded to it, which is the design of the fabric. Of course, we can all see the fabric is stunning. We can all see the fabric is stunning. And let me let's look at a more high resolution version. My goodness, we could all we could all see that technically, especially if you appreciate realism, you know that this is just, obviously I'm a realist, so to me this is just like, I'm seeing this for the 100th time on my screen, and it's just glorious. I wish I could see it in person. We can just tell this is just gloriously crafted, realistic fabric. It feels real. I bet if you saw it in person, you would literally want to touch it. It feels even more real than fabric itself. That's true. Those of you who are lay people who are watching, there's a difference between the photorealism and there's levels to realism, right? There's a scale. So there's the photoreal. When you say, oh, something's real, that's a broad term. This is what I would say 19th century academic realism, which to me is naturalism, which is making something look as you see it without designing, plus design. So it's basically an artist wanted to make an effect of realistic fabric. He consciously made choices. So it's realism plus intelligent choices is the height, or at least, to me, is the most beautiful form of realism. That's what I try to do in my work. But anyway, we can all agree that this is glorious, glorious realistic fabric. Oh my goodness. But besides the gorgeous detail, right, if you're a lay person, if you're not trained, you go, oh, look at that detail. Oh, look at that beautiful shimmer. Oh, look at that. Look. I would take my small brush and make those beautiful flower petals and those flower, wow, look at that glorious detail. But the trained eye, the composer knows it's way more than just detail. The composer, and this is the school that I come from. I come from Los Angeles. I was trained in what I call the LA Atelier system, which is heavily design based. It's American version of this. It's the American version of European classical academic realism, but more specifically, the California, Southern California, Los Angeles, West Coast of America version of this stuff. And it is heavily design based. It puts a lot of weight on pictorial design, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And why this is such a glorious design is the concept, and I learned this from my mentor, Steve Houston, so shout out to Steve Houston. And Steve Houston is one of the greatest American painters living, in my opinion. Fantastic artist and teacher. And this is an LA concept, and he got this from animators. What makes LA Atelier system special is that it's classical European knowledge. This stuff that we're seeing, Giacomo Grosso, Sargent, the Bouguereau, the Ang, but with taken through the filter of American Hollywood entertainment. So movies and animation. Animators love this concept called, I'm going to write it down. Sorry, I just get so excited talking about it. Concept is called, come on. The concept is called C versus straight, or CVS. C versus straight. What does that mean? Straight, as we can all see, there's lots of straight in this design. So we can all see there's lots of straight in the design. There's straight here. They're straight there. Come on, iPad. How come it works? Sometimes it works. It goes straight. They're straight there. They're straight on the back of her couch. They're straight on the, implied straight on the bottom of the couch. The highlight is basically straight. Her dress is straight. Bam. Top of her bust is straight. Straight, 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 straight. So, and it's straight, centered. It's very straight. It feels straight. It's long and tall. It's straight. Straight, 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 straight. There's even some straights in the fabric. Her arm, straight. Almost very straight, very straight. And that's her hips, kind of straight. Not an accident, my friends. What does he do? What does he do, the master designer, the craftsman, to offset this beautiful straight? Because too many straights are garish, right? Too much is too bravado, is too garish. It lowers the taste. What does he do? What does the master craftsman do? Of course, you can see it. I already talked about it. You can see it. He balances it with this gorgeous curve. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Smaller curves, straighty curves, and the big curve. Da 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 da. So you see, he balances all of those intense straights with glorious curves, with the glorious fabric. So in a way, it makes you want to look at the fabric because the fabric is different. It's different. Yes, it's different material, but because it's different in design, there's so much straight. The core design is straight vertical, and the second core design is straight horizontal, smack in the middle. And he says, you know what? How can I balance my composition and make you want to look somewhere else and smack dab in the middle? Oh, I know. I will design a curve. I will design a glorious curve, and then I'll use my skill as a realist painter to dazzle you with detail. But you see, that's, I hope you see the core message here, and this is going back to the LA model, is that this is what LA model emphasizes, is design and impression versus detail. So yes, the details are glorious. The flower petals are glorious, of course. But it doesn't work as well. It doesn't get as much attention. It doesn't make a beautiful picture as a whole unless you design it properly with the beautiful, correct abstraction, the shape design of the beautiful curve, my friend. So C versus straight. A lot of intense straights, but he gives you just enough curves. And notice he puts it at the bottom. He puts it at the bottom, away from the main thing, so to give the picture weight. So because he needed some visual weight for this picture. There's a lot at the top, middle top. There's a lot there. He needs you to look down here. What does he do? He puts glorious fabric, of course, but he puts it at a curve. So 1000%, the design of this fabric was conscious. I'm sure he meticulously placed it each time she sat for this. And she did sit for this. And let's close with this. Let's close with the story of this painting. La Femme by Giacomo Grosso. I hope you got a new appreciation for it. And we'll close with this. Remember I said beauty is harmony. Harmony comes from purpose and intent. Intent is born from conscious design, intelligent design of a craftsman. This glorious painting has, we just saw all the intent. And to further prove the intent, going back to the story of the painting, remember the story is about womanhood and being proud of yourself and of your body. Being proud of a woman who has a curvy, voluptuous body. Be proud of yourself as a woman. Be happy with yourself. Be proud of yourself. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your body. Don't be ashamed of your body, no matter what shape you are. That's the story, my friends. And you can see all those elements. And this is, let me see if I can make this bigger here. Oh, good, I can't. So this is from an Italian website. It tells the story of this painting. And I will read a bit of this. She says, quote, "I asked Master Grosso not to lie with his brush about my physicality. The good Lord wanted me of generous forms. So be it. Many ladies looking at the painting will recognize each other and become my allies, and I will be a good friend to them. I will convince them not to hide at the back of family photos, but to stay in the front row, in the front of the lens, and the devil, if any rolls appear between the folds of the dress." I love that last line. And I will translate, this is translated by my browser here. But what she's saying, my interpretation of it is, hey, I want other women not to be ashamed of their big curvy bodies. And she says, if my fat rolls, she says here, and the devil if rolls appear between the folds. She says, if Master Grosso paints my fat rolls or if they're photographed in a to hell with it. I don't care. I'm proud of my fat rolls. What an incredible statement. What an incredible statement. So that's really it. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your body. Don't be ashamed of your body, no matter what shape you are. And she's trying to encourage other women to be proud of themselves. And at this time, my friends, this wasn't common. You know, at the time of this recording, this is quite common. It's quite common. But at this time, not so much. So this is quite a revolutionary painting. And the fact that this sitter, and her husband who commissioned it, was arguably one of the richest, most powerful people in Italy at the time. You could not, where this painting is hanging at a place called Palazzo Macchetti. Forgive me, Italian speakers, but it's basically a grand palace full of incredible works of art, and only the the ultra wealthy of Italy at the time could be in this palazzo, could be in this palace. So she was one of the most richest, most powerful women or wives of one of those richest, most powerful men in Italy at the time, and she purposely didn't want the world to know her identity because she wanted to be a symbol for other women. So wow. Wow, my friends, let's close with that. Thank you for watching, my friends. You know, I already proved, going back to what this whole video was about, I proved why, what makes a painting beautiful is conscious design. And you saw how many conscious elements were in this beautiful image. And the most important thing is, going back to purpose, beauty is harmony, harmony comes from purpose, going back to purpose, the purpose of this image was to tell a story of, hey, be proud of your body. Be okay with yourself no matter what you look like. Be okay with yourself no matter what you look like. Did this painting serve that story? Of course. Look at the gorgeous curves. Look at the gorgeous curves. Not ashamed at all of those gorgeous curves. Not ashamed if her belly roll were to show through, and it does a little bit. Not ashamed to see the width of her hips. And she was also proud of her breasts. Not ashamed to show how large her breasts were. And you could see how tastefully the master craftsman Giacomo Grosso also made her feel important. He fulfilled the purpose while still elevating the taste, not being too garish, not being too bravado. So he served the purpose both pictorially and, I would say, culturally. As a person making a glorious, beautiful image for anyone watching or anyone seeing this thing to fully appreciate. You know, he basically made the world a more beautiful place, and that's my core message. So thank you for watching, my friends. If you like this kind of thing, I have a new community now where I do this kind of thing. This painting is actually part of my current master's project, where I break down a work of art every week with a group of patrons and students and art lovers in my community. So you can click the link in the description below if you want to be a part of that. You can see there's, you know, this beautiful discussion. You know, I share my processes about it. You know, I have other videos and lessons that are archived here for these members. And yeah, if you love beauty, if you like me, if you like my work, if any of my words resonate with you, you like the way I teach, you like the way I present, you're going to enjoy it here. If you like to have discussions about, because this is more than just for art students. To me, this is a place for people who want to understand why things are beautiful, for people who appreciate beauty but don't understand why. That's really who else this place is for. And of course, it's for my students who want to learn how to draw and paint and stuff. But you see, we have wonderful discussions here. Click the link in the description below. Once again, my name is Chris Legaspi. You can go to my website, www.drawwithchris.com. Thank you for joining me, my friends. I will see you in the next video. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.